Hey everyone, big day today. Been waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for all these parts, and I can finally crack into the 200 today. We've got new suspension going in, we've got new under vehicle protection, new exhaust. There's a lot to get through and a lot to repair, so let's get into it. All right, there's a bit to get through today, so I'll give you a bit of a rundown on what's actually happened. So in September last year, we took a trip to Fraser Island for my 40th and, you know, having a good time and all the rest of it. We went up to Nagala Rocks, so we were staying at Central Station as a base camp and that. We went up to Nagala Rocks and, you know, I got stuck, just not, you know, paying attention and whatnot. Anyway, it happens. Everyone gets stuck. And then what it meant, though, is that we were running late for the tides. So we were fanging it back down the beach, obviously doing 80 k's an hour, but, you know, heading very quickly down the beach and racing the tide. And we can see the tide coming in. And I didn't want to be close to the water's edge. So I was up the beach a little bit and just did not see a washout. There was a washout and I just didn't see it until it was basically on me. And it was probably about 2 or 3 foot deep. And we've gone over the other side of it and launched into the other bank. And I still don't know how the airbags didn't go off. It just amazes me. But anyway, what it's done is it's pushed the bull bar up into the radiator support. And then therefore it's then created, you know, it's cracked the headlight and it's just done a fair bit of mechanical damage. Now I was able to drive it home. That was all fine. So I put through a claim through insurance, went to go and get assessed. And because I'm insured with Shannon's, they have a lifetime warranty on the repairs. Long story short, the panel beater, because the panel beaters, there's effectively no panel damage. This is all just mechanical damage. And because there was damage underneath it from, you know, 6 years of trips and whatnot, scrapes and whatnot, they couldn't guarantee the repairs. So they just elected to do a cash settlement, which is fine. It means that I could then go and get the parts that I needed in order to go and repair it. So that's where we're up to now. So what I've got is, because the suspension, the current suspension that's in it seems to be sagging a bit more now, like particularly in the front. So I've gone and bought all new suspension, front and rear. I've kept the rear springs though. The rear springs seem to be fine, so that's okay. So I've got that. I believe the bull bar is going to be okay, but we're going to pull that off. I'm going to check to see if any of the bracketry's been bent or anything like that. If not, I'll probably be up for a new bull bar, but we'll see how we go. The radiator support apparently is a little bit bent, so once the bull bar comes off, we should be able to straighten that out, which will then get all that front alignment all looking nice again. And then I'll have a go at repairing that headlight while I'm going with the suspension. So I've actually got new upper control arms. I put some new airbags in it as well, because obviously we do a bit of towing and that, and I've always wanted to run airbags anyway, so I was like, well, suspension's out, might as well get some airbags. I've got a new exhaust as well. I've just, you know, I thought, yeah, again, while I've got everything out, let's put a new exhaust on that. So. Here's where all the, I guess, the money is. Now, I've never run Superior stuff before. I've had Dobinsons in pretty much every four-wheel drive, with probably the exception of the 80 series, forever. And now I've got Dobinsons back in the 80 series and that as well. So the reason why I chose Superior is, I think cost-wise, very similar to Dobinsons. So there was not real much, I guess, difference there. What I like about this particular kit is that it comes with the electronic dampening. So it means that in the cab, I can play around with the damper settings versus the manual settings like what I've got on the 80 series sort of thing. So time will tell. As I said, I've never run Superior stuff before. I know a lot of guys out there have, and they swear by it and everything like that. I've also heard the other end of the spectrum as well. So, time will tell, I guess. So this is all the electronic dampening control, so they'll run into the cab. Thing I like about it is they've got these wires that obviously go into the thing, but they're all, each one has its own different color, right? So it makes the wiring of it, fairly straightforward. So as you can see, I've got rears and they're all remote resis and everything like that. But as I said, I'm going to keep the original springs in it because I've already got 2-inch springs in the back. So I'll just add these shocks on. And then these are a 3-inch front, which should give me, so if we look at it now, as you can see, we've got a small gap there versus a bigger gap at the back. So what I'm hoping is, and that's that standard sort of front rake that you see on the 200 series. What I'm hoping is that by putting in slightly bigger fronts, that it brings the front of that car up and doesn't give as much rake. So I've been going back and forward on this thing. I just want to make sure I'm doing it right. So there's a couple of different ways, and the biggest thing, my concern was around the KDSS, because it just felt like there was so much tension still on it. So anyway, I've opened the relief valves, I've done everything. It's, I've popped that sway bar out now. So anyway, it just doesn't feel right, but it's out now. So there's a couple of different ways I've seen, and of course, I just YouTube stuff as well. One way is to obviously disconnect the upper control arm with that one, and then disconnect the tie rod for the steering. And then that whole assembly will then drop down, and then we'll be able to take out the strut and the upright and bring it out that way. But I just saw another way of doing it, which was undo the 2 bolts underneath here on the lower control arm, loosen a little bit those lower control arm bolts, and then just let that whole bottom sway, and then this whole hub assembly can stay, and so therefore it keeps the drive shaft in the diff and everything like that. So I might just do that to do the arm, like to do the struts, and then when I need to do the control arm, well then I can just undo that bolt there, and then I can do the arm as a second sort of part. So I think that's going to be my attack plan. So let's crack into it. Well, I can't begin to describe to you how much of a mission that was. So it's taken me, what, I reckon 6 hours just to do this one side. Anyway, it's the first time I've done suspension on, obviously, a 200, but yeah, it's first time I've done suspension. I did the FJ Cruiser, but yeah, independent fronts just get me stuffed. Anyway, it's in now and it looks pretty flash. So let's have a look. Got rebound adjustment there, which I'll play around with when I get it in the car. Then we've got the upper control arm. I've left the dust cap off just in case I need to pack it a little bit more grease, because as I was tightening that up, it sort of didn't look that full. So I'll keep packing with that. And then actually reuse the existing Dobinson's mount. I had to make or cut off the existing ring because it's just a little bit smaller. So, and then I had to weld on a new ring. So I've welded that on, and that's tucked away nicely now. So just got the wiring for the electronic dampening to do, and And that's it for that side. Well, that side went on a little bit easier. I think the trick was definitely undoing the lower control arm bolts, like dropping those two out. But what I also did, obviously being on a hoist is a little bit different, but when you're on the ground, maybe support this rotor and assembly. So what I did is I put a chock underneath that and then dropped the lower control arm out, and then that strut came out really quickly. And then I was then able to, once I was able to put that new strut in, I then bolted that up and sort of got that secure in there. And then the upper control arm was really easy. So I think I was trying to do too much at once on the other side, and it just took so long to do. Whereas this side probably went in probably about, I don't know, an hour and a half. So yeah, that's definitely the learning curve, or the learning outcome for that. So yeah, that's front's all done now. I've greased up the ball joint, so that's fine. Everything's just all sitting in there. The only things that are tight at the moment are the top of the struts. Everything else needs to be tightened up, but it needs to be tightened up on the ground. Otherwise you get pinching on all the bushes and everything like that. So I'll move on to the back now. The back should be fairly straightforward. It's just like a typical live axle front end, rear end sort of thing. So that shouldn't take too long. I'll put the airbags in. And then I'll put some wheels on it, put it back on the ground, and then go through and tighten everything up. So let's get into that now. Now when you're working on cars, don't put fingers in where they're not meant to be, because then this happens. When I was dropping the front end down this morning, had my hand underneath it, jammed it in between, almost lost the top of the finger, but it's yeah, now it's just bleeding all afternoon. Alrighty, all done under here. I think it looks pretty good. So we've got the adjustable panhard rod. That's all in there. Basically, it was sitting okay as it was, but I've just lengthened it by about 10 mil. So I'll test that and see what it does. Airbags are sitting in the coils, and then got that running at the back, and I'll plumb that up a little bit later on. Yeah, the shocks, I really like the little ball joint feature on the bottom here. I think they're actually designed for this rebound adjustment to be on the inside, but I don't want to get knocked off, so I flipped it around and put it this side. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know, but I like that. And what it meant was that at the top with the remote res hose, I actually just put a little hose clamp on here, and I've run that and got good clearance around that coil, and then just run it around the back of the coil. And then yeah, I've mounted the remote resies up here. Now I've just got to check to make sure that that top control arm is going to clear it at full up, which I think it should, because I think that's about where they're designed to be. But I'll just test that, and then obviously I've still got to do all the wiring and that later. But yeah, same on the other side. Yeah, it's sort of mounted up there and that as well. And again, I've got clearance around the coil, so that'll keep that from fouling up on the coil. And yeah, what it means is I can then keep these adjusters on the inside, so I'm not going to risk smashing them off in the bush. The KDSS was a bit of a pain, so I released the relief valves, which is, yeah, you're meant to turn them 3 turns anti-clockwise, and you should be able to freely move this. Now, I've never been able to really freely move it all, but I can move it, so I'm assuming that it's been relieved. But yeah, getting the sway bar off was a bit of a pain. Same at the front as well, so whether there's still a heap of tension sitting in there or not, but anyway, I was able to play around with that. So that was really the only issue at the back, and then trying to get the diff to rotate down was a bit of a pain as well. But I actually just looking at this now, because I bought extended brake lines, but those brake lines are actually not too bad, so I might leave them for the moment, and then I'll see how it goes, whether I get some tension on that or not. But yeah, I had to take those little clips out, those little retaining clips, to get the diff to rotate to get all the springs out and that. But anyway, all right, so I got the bar off now, and now I can have a good look at the actual damage that that it's actually done from hitting that washout. Check this out. So I'll try and get in there. See that there? That's a ding in the bottom of the radiator support here. So obviously this whole bar is hit and gone up and pushed that up in there. Now, the good thing is there doesn't seem to be any structural damage or anything like that. There's no chassis damage, obviously. It just looks like this whole plate here is just flexed up, and therefore the whole bull bar is flexed up and pushed up. And so you can see here, that's where the top of the bull bar has hit and crushed in. There's a little crease in the plastic there that you can see it's pushed back. And then yeah, as I said, that's where that's gone up. So I mean that's a lot of force to take that up to that. But yeah, as I said, the good thing is it doesn't look like there's any structural damage in that, so might be able to get away with this. And the other side's the same. See, the other side's got a big ding in the radiator support there, so yeah, and at the top. And then yeah, what it's done is it's then cracked the headlight mount as well. So I'm gonna try and plastic weld this first, and if I can't, well then I'll replace the headlight. But these headlights are like $2.5 grand each, so I can get away with not replacing it. I can get away with repairing it. That's what I'll probably prefer to do. Let's see how this goes. I don't know how it's gonna work. I've never done it before, and I'm not even gonna do a test run. This is completely raw and unedited. Yeah, we've got the headlight, and then we've got the mount. Now, it's sort of sheared, so I'm hoping I can just melt that back in, right? So I'm gonna put that into there, and we'll just see what it does. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna think about it like welding, so I might just do like a couple of tacks before I go and put any material in there. So I've just bought just a cheap little soldering iron. It's actually a wood burning iron, so they come with like all these different attachments. So I've got this one, this little square attachment. I don't know how it's going to work, but oh yeah, ha, that's cool. I reckon that's tacked in there nicely. Ha! There's my tack. So let's see if we can just add a little bit of material in there. Oh yeah. Yeah, not bad.
A few moments later.
All right, that failed. It almost worked. When I was going to fit it up, it has to clip into certain spots and that, and there was just still too much tension because I've obviously got to fix where the bottom bracket comes. I've got to bend it up a bit in order for it to remove the tension off that bit there. So it almost worked. It was just a little too much tension. So I'm going to go to plan B. I was hoping I'd be able to get away with not doing this, but clearly not. So plan B is, I've seen again on YouTube, I've seen where they use like a reinforcement sort of thing. So they've used like nails or something like that in the past, but I reckon I'm going to use these staples. I've just got little staples just out of a staple gun. And I'm going to try and melt that into place. And I'm hoping that creates like a reinforcement to it. So we'll see. We'll see what it does. So I'll just melt this into place here now. Tack it into place. Just like that. So let's see how this goes. Put one of them in there. And again, I've seen this where they push it down and melt it down. Seemed to work. So what I'm doing is I'm putting, like, you got the crack there, and I'm putting basically the staple over the top of it, sort of thing, so it joins the two sides. So the two ends are joining the two sides. As soon as you put the heat on that staple, it then obviously just melts into the plastic, because the heat obviously transfers through the metal. Reinforcement's the key. Those staples in there now. She's nice and taut. So you can see, like, I melted them in, but they're sort of just still on top there a little bit, but that's okay. Saves $2.5 grand, that's for sure. Yeah, because when I did this yesterday, put the clip in there, and then it clips around the side there, and then yeah, the tension on that was just too much, and it just went snap. But now it's got reinforcement in there, so it's holding up pretty good. We're bolting that, and that's it. So what I might do next is I'll start on the exhaust. Now, doing the exhaust, you always want to, when you disassemble, you want to go from back to front, and then when you're assembling, you want to go from front to back. So I'll do that. I might even put a little time lapse up, and then this shouldn't take too long, but I've said that about everything, and everything else is taking a while, so who knows.